Hello, I interviewed Mrs. Kathy Wolf. She is my clinical educator in the 8th grade English Language Arts classroom in Spearfish Middle School. I focused much of my interview on Mrs. Wolf's delivery through technology and classroom assignments and activities that engage student learners. Currently, the Spearfish Middle School is 1-to-1. However, Mrs. Wolf uses little technology in the classroom. She often uses direct instruction with the support of a PowerPoint to introduce classroom concepts or introduce background of authors during literature units, for example. After she does her direct instruction or her mini lecture, Mrs. Wolf will just assign worksheets to the students to complete. She does admit that this is often difficult, as some students do struggle to complete the reading assignments and worksheets in class. We have two sections of ELA that have about more than 15 IEP students in each class, which makes it often difficult to use worksheets without enough resources in the classroom to work with the students individually. We also do have one English language learner, and using worksheets that have heavy reading, heavy text, does make it difficult for the student to be engaged and focused on the assignment. I asked Mrs. Wolf if she tailors her learning to student interests. Mrs. Wolf often assigns the topics for research papers and debates that students complete. I noticed that when she does assign topics to students, the students are not as engaged in the material as they would be if they were allowed to choose a subject that would interest them. Also, when students often complete group work, Mrs. Wolf says one student often does a bulk of the work, which hinders student learning. I think there's a powerful tool in peer tutoring if it is implemented effectively. I asked Mrs. Wolf if she uses Google Documents, for example, for writing assignments. She says that she allows them the option for handwritten or typed assignments, but she does not edit the student work via Google Docs. She hand corrects the papers or simply marks the writing assignments as complete. So students are getting no feedback on corrected grammar, writing structure, or even overall idea generation. And the writing projects often are corrected in a slower manner, since they are longer or do take longer to edit. And so they're not receiving feedback in a timely manner where they can implement it and use it going forward. Mrs. Wolf does implement several unique and creative technology assignments to engage English learners. We recently finished a newspaper narrative where students create the front page of a newspaper announcing their high school graduation. There was an online template that students used, and they needed to write news stories basically announcing their future selves when they graduated high school. It allowed for some creative thinking and also some creative writing, which I thought was really unique. The only downfall was that the website is outdated, and as Mrs. Wolf did say, many students struggle to save and print their work. Mrs. Wolf is very aware that the classroom is changing, and she's making progress in her technology implementation to meet students' needs. She is currently setting up a Google Classroom for the 2018-19 school year, and I think that will drastically change her delivery style as well as how students are engaged in the material that she is teaching them. Interviewing Mrs. Wolf was almost a reflection of what my time in the secondary classroom was like. I came from a very small rural school. We didn't have a lot of technology implementation, number one, because it just wasn't there back in the early 2000s. And number two, we didn't have the money or the funds in our school in order to provide students with individualized computers for every assignment. We received a lot of direct instruction, much like Mrs. Wolf does today, and we learned through worksheets. In math, we used to have to copy down math problems and complete them in a notebook. The little to no interactive learning was hard for me as a student because I wasn't motivated to advance my research or my critical thinking skills. I just simply got the task done and earned my A. If something didn't interest me in my secondary education experience, and I didn't put effort in it because there was no way to engage me beyond what my teacher was already doing. As I mentioned, technology was limited for me in high school. We wrote book reports and research papers. We did have a keyboarding class where I will admit I was the top typer in my keyboarding class. We just didn't have the online resources students have today or the apps to allow creativity to flow. We did create websites in middle school, and we did learn some basic HTML skills, but that was kind of the limit of my creative use of technology during my own secondary education experience. So after chatting with Mrs. Wolf and reflecting on my own time as a student in my school, I want technology to be at the forefront. I truly believe that in order to meet student learning needs and adapt to their learning styles, we need to be able to use technology. There are so many opportunities with different apps and online programs that students can use in order to understand the material that we're presenting to them. I have already actually created a Google Classroom for my student teaching internship. However, when I have my own classroom, I will create another one where students can access ELA-related materials, take quizzes, and upload their assignments. I've created some short formative assessments in Google Classroom where students can complete writing prompts or short exercises on grammar comprehension. Hattie actually says that increasing the opportunity to spend more time on a task really makes a difference to learning. If I can increase the rate of correct responses through practice, then students are going to better understand the material. After I do some short direct instruction, I do just this. I have students get onto their Google Classroom and complete maybe a 5-question prompt or a 5-question grammar exercise before they go on to do the homework assignment for the day. Hattie also stresses immediacy in responding to students to show that we're listening. Technology can answer questions, provide feedback, and share class concerns immediately, which shows the students that I'm attentive. Immediacy during classroom lessons is also key. I want to make sure that I am constantly moving around the classroom to make sure that students are not only on task, but that they understand the content I'm delivering to them. Hattie says immediacy is perceived by the students as an acknowledgement of their engagement. It reduces the perceived distance between instructor and learners, and it increases their level of enthusiasm or commitment to the learning task. When I'm constantly asking students questions about their writing or why they come to that conclusion, I've noticed that they've put more effort into their writing because I am paying attention and I'm showing them that I do care about the work they're doing and that it's not just busy work. I also see great value in students working with their peers. I don't believe that a classroom needs to be set up with desks just facing the teacher anymore. That is how I learned. We had the old study hall desks that actually had the inkwell in them where you could put the bottle of ink to write. There was no way to move the desks in order to engage with my classmates when we were doing assignments. So I want my students to be active with one another. I would like them to post to a classroom blog where they can review, comment, and learn from fellow classmates. I already incorporate peer editing activities, and I allow group work as often as I can. Hattie suggests that peers as co-teachers teaches students, the self-regulation and control over their own learning. Or in its most simplest form, it teaches students to become their own teachers. And I truly think that's what we want to do, is really foster a way for students to be able to critically think and research on their own and take learning beyond the classroom. And by adapting to their learning needs, as well as adapting our classroom to what they need in order to effectively learn, they'll be able to be their own teachers in the future.